Michigan falling short against TCU. A lot of self-inflicted injuries there, and they couldn't come back from it. They left 21 points on the 1 yard line. And then Ohio State came out like a monster, battled and played it all the way down to the end. And they lose on a go-ahead field goal attempt to win it, and they missed the kick. Trevor, I'm gonna start with you. What was your impressions? Let's start with the TCU Michigan shocker. What was your impressions of that game?
I'll say this to start. I do believe, and tip of the cap to TCU and the success that they've had this year. But given how the game played out, I think Michigan wins that football game any other day of the year. And I'll start there. You mentioned it a little bit. Not scoring on the 1 yard line, the turnover, the two pick sixes, and then just a lack of identity of what they've been all year from a physicality standpoint. The fact that Kendre Miller gets hurt, the running back for TCU, who's had an absolutely phenomenal year, and Imari DiMercato comes in relief and has 150 yards on the ground and was breaking off some huge plays. I got it here, 8.8 yards per carry on 17 carries. And so I think on top of the turnovers and the lack of scoring there in the tight zone, the lack of physicality and stopping the run is why Michigan ended up losing this game. And they were still in it. They had an opportunity to win late. It was a close game. What it turned out, it was not only has it been TCU's year, but it was TCU's night again in this one in the playoff.
Hack, what jumped out at you? And to stack your answer even more so, my biggest impression was that on the two strongest things for Michigan all season long, offensive line, were not banging. And the coaching staff, which has been consistent, buttoned up, and incredibly detailed. Offensively, I thought they got cute. Defensively, I thought they were gambling too much, blitzing all over the place, and you did not need to. Taking that, what was your impressions? How did you see this? And do you side with Trevor? Seemingly any other time those guys would line up, Wolverines take it.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say, I mean, Trevor, you called this. You said this was gonna be a much closer game than a lot of folks thought. I was kind of on the other end of that, and good job on that. But George, to answer your question, Michigan just they looked for a team that has been so consistent and so identity oriented on both sides of the football all year. Didn't flinch. We're in a dogfight with Indiana. Didn't flinch. Just stuck to the game plan. Stuck to who they were. Played sound. Played consistent, and ultimately pulled away. They really, it almost looked like they panicked in some of those situations. TCU was loading the box trying to force JJ to win it. They didn't go to some easy counter punches, right? Like, all right, let's move the pocket. Let's get some early play action in terms of like nakeds, getting JJ out on the edge, being able to use his athleticism and use his arm with numbers, because they're dedicating so many hats to the box. Take some relief off the offensive line. Screen game early. They went from like who they were to, okay, TCU punched us in the mouth. Now we're just going to throw the kitchen sink at it. It's funny, George, you talked about that. Was TCU going to need to throw the kitchen sink? Right. Michigan threw the kitchen sink just to throw the fucker.
Play.
Yeah, just to throw the son of a bitch. And it was so unorthodox and just so out of character for this Michigan team all year. And then on the other side of the ball, defensively, blowing they send a corner blitz and the safety rotates to the middle of the field and they get a 32-yard explosive play on that ultimately sets up a touchdown. Just real disciplinary shit that they have done all year long that ultimately got them there. Just blew some circuits in some big time moments, and it cost them. And when you have a guy like Max Duggan on the other side of the football, he's played a lot of ball, been through a lot, executed, took advantage of it. And JJ with those two costly pick sixes, I think even if a couple of those weren't If one of those wasn't returned for a touchdown, I think we're talking about a different outcome. But not a different outcome, but a much closer football game. But when you spot them 14 points, that's tough to overcome. So yeah, I hope that kind of answered it. But I think you roll this out, to Trevor's point. I think you roll this game out 10 times. TCU might win 2 or 3. But it would have to be stars aligning, kind of how it did on Saturday.
I didn't think the referees took care of Michigan. Really just didn't take care of the game. They don't have to take care of a team. That big touchdown they hit in the third quarter, where they said he was down on the 1. I don't remember the receiver's name. Duggan might have it. He's on the ground, bobbles it, and then he doesn't actually come down with it until his back is in the end zone. That's a touchdown. And then so say it again?
Roman Wilson.
So I thought that was a tremendous, like, what are we doing? And then either it's targeting or it's not. What difference does it make if it's like, oh, it's only 8 seconds or 50 seconds, or the game's out of control, you can't win anyway? Like, you have to call the call. What else did we do that whole dance for with targeting the last couple of years if you're now not going to call it? And so I thought that was a textbook call. Trevor, do any of those calls in your mind have impact on the game, or like really is it kind of moot from your standpoint?
Well, the first one, big time, because that was when they turned the ball over the next play, when they didn't score that touchdown, correct? They go to punch it in and he fumbles the football, right?
Yeah, and on the interception, they spotted it 2 yards back from where the player actually, when TCU threw the pick right before they threw that touchdown, right, they missed the spot by like 2 or 3 yards, which was pretty crazy too.
That's right. So you really talk about a game of inches or a game of a few plays. Well, that's textbook, right?